Hello, everyone. Welcome to This Week on Mars. My name is Ian Hewitt. I'm with the Coastal Carolina University Gupta College of Science, and we're talking every week about interesting things going on Mars, especially with regards to the Perseverance rover. This week, what we're going to talk about the panorama that NASA JPL took last week. So, in terms of the panorama, what does that mean? Well, there's what's called the mass cam on the rover. So this is a picture of the rover on Mars. This is an artist picture, of course. And one of the things you may notice is the rover's head up here. That's called the mast. And the mast cam is basically a twin pair of cameras on there, and you can kind of see if you look pretty carefully below the square box head, you see almost what look like two little eyes, and they're square. And those are the two cameras. One is specialized for being telescopic, and one is specialized for taking pictures very up close. So they can combine the two of those to get some really cool images. So what NASA actually did is they actually in one of the checkout things for the rover, they actually uh, spun the head around 360 degrees, taking a set of pictures, and basically took 79 set of pictures, and then they kind of merged them all together in one very, very long panorama. It's almost 100,000 pixels wide. So let's go ahead and take a look at that panorama. And you'll excuse me while I bring it up. And then here's the panorama you can see for yourself on nasa.gov. So this is what Perseverance actually sees when it looks around 360 degrees around itself. So we'll start at one end. You can kind of see these are some mountains in the far distance. And we'll start looking across. And you can see one thing you notice right away is, of course, there are a lot of rocks. A lot of these rocks are created by impacts from asteroids and meteorites over the course of Mars history. The other thing you notice is there are some rocks that are kind of rounded, but most of the rocks are really jagged. When you see really jagged rocks, that means there's not a lot of weathering that goes on. So obviously it doesn't rain on Mars, and obviously the wind is much, much lighter because the atmosphere is much, much thinner. We'll talk more about the atmosphere in another video. But because of that, the rocks stay a lot sharper. So they're a lot. They don't get as rounded as here on Earth. Here on Earth, a lot of times you find rocks. They're actually rounded, because even though they're rocks and rocks are pretty hard, the weathering effects of Earth, both the wind and the rain, they're pretty powerful, and they can basically round off the sharp edges of rocks. So we'll keep looking as we go across. You can kind of see the mountain range, which is basically sort of the edge of the crater in this case. You can see it kind of here in the background. You do notice there's a lot of dust in the atmosphere. That's just kind of a thing you have to deal with on Mars, right? You don't, once in a while you get really clear views, but you also get dusty views sometimes. You have to account for that. You can see there's a lot of debris right here as we slowly pan through. And now we're sort of getting more toward the edge of the crater that we really are interested in, right? And you'll see the mountains actually get cut off at the top here. That's because they wanted to kind of preserve this area right here. And this area is one of the areas that we're really, really interested in, because you can kind of see it from this diagram. Is you can kind of see that it almost looks like there's some smoothed out areas. And this is where, if you look at it from above, you'll see it looks like there was water running, or it was like a river delta at one time. You can see where it looks like there's areas that sort of been channels that have sort of been dug out and smoothed out. And this is about 2 kilometers away, so not very far away from the rover. And this is one area they're going to go and start investigating. And you can kind of see it, kind of channel kind of runs across here. You also see some interesting colors, kind of bluish colors, and we'll talk a little bit about how they get the colors on Mars. You may think everything on Mars is red. Not necessarily. So, and we go through here, and you can see again more of the smoothed out area, right back through here, the delta area. But again, you also see a lot of these really sharp, jagged rocks. You see a lot of these rocks on Mars. So we'll keep going, kind of panning through slowly here. And you do know you're in a crater because you pretty much see mountains all the way around. It's much like if you ever get a chance to go out in the desert Southwest, some of the areas like Phoenix, on a really clear day, if you were to stand up on a tall building and look all the way around, you would see mountains all the way around. Again, sort of the same thing. Of course, that's not because of impacts like this, meteor impacts, but it's the same kind of idea. So we'll kind of just continue to pan. And again, if you want to download this image, you certainly can. Um, when you from NASA, or you can actually use this little interactive app that I'm looking at, and see that there's a lot of rock. You see, there's no shortage of rocks on Mars to look at, and we'll keep panning across here. It's a particularly large rock. And you see some more smooth, really super smooth areas here that are areas that are pretty much of interest. Again, because one of the things Perseverance is going to look for life, and wherever there was water, there's possibly either life or signs of past life. So that's a really important thing for Perseverance. So we'll continue pushing over, and again, you see kind of greenish blue areas here, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, how you sort of get that. That is kind of a trick that the Martian atmosphere will play on you. It's not everything is red or pink. And we'll keep paging through. Again, this is a really high-res image. If you want to download it and look at it on your computer, you can zoom in and see all kinds of neat details. Like, for example, let's try zooming in on this rock pile. And you can see it is a very high-resolution image. So you can see even little minor pebbles and rocks here inside here. And then you can see a lot of detail even on these larger rock piles. So it is it's actually really cool if you want to download it and or look at it online and play with it and just get a chance to see what it would look like if you were standing on Mars. So how do we sort of get these great images, right? This is actually a pretty cool area too. We'll actually look at this. You can see you get really good detail inside these rocks. So how do we actually sort of get this? Well, let's actually go back to our previous one. Is how do we know what color it is, right? So we take all these images. How do we know the color is like that? Well, that's a really good question. If you were to look at the rover, you can't really see it from this particular angle because it's on top of the rover. You would see this mounted on top of the rover. You see it's bolted to the top of the rover. It's got basically like a little sundial. You can see the little rod sticking up in the middle. And then it's got all these discs on here. And what is this? Well, this is what's called a calibration target. And this is how they know what the colors look like on Mars. So basically, this is mounted in a place where the cameras can actually see it. And here's a better picture of what the calibration target looks like before it was attached here on Earth. And as you can see, it's got various colors from different grays to black. Grays are very useful in calibrating images, especially black and white images. And then it's got, sort of like basically it's like a red, green, and blue, but kind of split up a little bit differently into 4 different colors. You can see there's also a lot of graphics on there, like Two Worlds, One Beginning, that NASA puts on there. But this color target is very important for actually getting the cameras calibrated. So we know what these colors look like on Earth. We know exactly what these colors look like. So when you take a picture, which is one of the first things NASA does, of the calibration target, you can actually kind of sort of dial in the image, dial in the camera, so you know how to actually make the colors look like it would look like if you were actually there. So how does this kind of look? Well, one of the things you also get into is you make the colors look like what they're already there, but you also need to, when you see a lot of the Mars images, some of them get extra processing, right? Just like you would do with Photoshop or Lightroom if you were processing images you took with your digital camera. There's something called white balance, which basically adjusts how warm the colors is. Warmer picture is, right? If it's very warm, it's got a lot of like browns and kind of yellow, almost yellowish tint. That would be on the very right hand side over here. Whereas if it's very cool, they would say it's got a very bluish tint. So you can see the same thing here with 4 different tints applied. Again, you can apply this easily. A lot of your iPhones and everything do it now inside the phone. You can do the processing. So, basically, you kind of have to decide what looks right and what kind of looks like to your eye. Those colors make a big difference. Both of these images are courtesy of photographypro.com, by the way. And basically, if you put a vase under different colors, different types of like LED bulbs, or what they call different temperatures of color, you can actually see that they look different. They don't actually look the same. So there's a lot of that that you need to be careful with as well. So when you look at these Mars images, so let's talk about the Mars images. This is what an unprocessed image would look like. So this is a raw data from Mars. So basically, this is just what you get without doing any kind of processing whatsoever. So what you do is when you actually try to adjust it to the natural color, again, you're using that calibration target to get that, you get something like this. This is really the natural color and kind of what it would look like on Mars. So if you were actually standing on Mars, it would kind of look like that. Notice the sky is not blue on Mars. And again, we'll talk about that in another video. But a lot of times, what you also see with these Mars images, and you need to probably look when you see a Mars image. It's good to kind of look at the description of it to see how it's been processed, because if you actually do the white balance in most of the software like Photoshop or Lightroom, it's going to look something like this, and you see a lot of images that look like this. And the reason is it kind of when you do this kind of processing, it assumes something in the scene is white. And so in this case, it's kind of going for the sky. And so it'll kind of adjust the balances, the color balances, and kind of bring out different colors. You see where there's a lot more blues in this than there probably would be if you were really on Mars because of the atmosphere. But it actually makes for nice looking images. So really the center is what you probably see if you were on Mars. Blue is this right hand scene is kind of nice, but probably not realistic for what you'd see. So that's what we wanted to cover this week. So thanks everybody for listening. Next week we'll have a different subject on Mars, and everybody have a great week.